Shalom Aleikhem, Hevarim, and welcome to another study. It's been a while since we've been back in fellowship on this format, and I'm happy to be back. I, for one, am happy to be back. I'm here joined by two of the brothers of the fellowship, Ak Natab and Ak Yosa, and and once again I'm Ak Gabriel. Uh, we're just a collection of believers that hold fast still the Torah and the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach. We're known as the Natsarim. And it's not just us three here. Uh, Prayerfully, there are many, many, many millions all over the world uh, who are, at this point, preparing for presumably a Kodesh, a new moon celebration. Although this meeting occurs ahead or preemptively to a new moon, this is not necessarily for a new moon, but hallelujah, we are here during the right time, and well, we've decided to give this another go. Previously, we've had some issues with formatting and with scheduling, getting everything just in order and just so. And a lot of that's been my fault. I take full responsibility for it. But it's time to move on and move forward. Although we may not have everything finely tuned, I think it's more important that we get started and we start getting the information and the message and the talks that we have and the revelations that we find. We start sharing them as soon as possible. So prayerfully, everything will work itself out as Yah's hand and His Ruach HaKodesh, His set-apart spirit guides us. We'll take a moment right now to ask for the presence of that Ruach HaKodesh from the man himself. You'll all join me. Barukata Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam Bareinu Eloheinu Kokoe Shivat Shemayim Yitkadesh Shemka Yahweh Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, we come to give you honor and esteem, for you and you alone over any other. This evening, as we kollel and fellowship over your word and study and seek out your truth, we ask that you send your Ruach HaEmet, your spirit of truth, here to dwell with us and to guide us along our path. That all the things that we've experienced, all the circumstances and all the issues that we have be left behind us. And in this moment, let us congregate with you, fellowship with you in your spirit, edify ourselves and each other, and all who may join in this broadcast, so that we may come to find out your truth and your word and your purpose, your will for us, and we come to fulfill it. We humbly ask for this. B'Shem Yahushua. Amen. Amen. All right. So, what I've decided is until we get a more concrete format, we're just going to start in the Hevarim. Okay? So, if people are not familiar, the Hevarim is a Hebrew term meaning the prophets. Okay? Now, all of us are familiar with the prophet, but we're going to try and get a scriptural definition of what a prophet is before we go on any further, okay? And what should be done with a prophet. Now, the Nevi'im begin with Yahusha, but before we get to Yahusha, we're going to go to Wa'ikra. Get a sense of what a prophet is and what's to be done about a prophet. Let's see, I think we should be at Wa'ikra 12, 13. No. 14. Discharge. Unclean house, death of two sons. I don't have as great scriptural recall as I should, but luckily, at least for the time being, they're available to us other avenues.
I think that's in Shemot.
Shemot, I think you're right. Actually, it's in Bemidbar 12. Bemidbar 12, verse 6. So we'll be in Numbers 12, verse 6, or Bemidbar 12, verse 6. Actually, Akiosa, you can go for that.
Okay. And he said, "Hear now my words, if your Navi of Yahweh, and make myself known to him in a vision, and I speak to him in a dream."
All right, we're going to continue. Keep going.
You want me to?
Yeah, keep going.
Not so with my servant Moshe, he's trustworthy in all my house. I speak with him mouth to mouth, and plainly and not in riddles. And he sees the form of Yahweh. So why were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moshe?
All right, excellent. Right there, those two, those three. And he said, "Hear now my words. If your prophet of your Nebar is of Yahweh, I make myself known to him in a vision." Okay, so we get a prerequisite for a prophet.
And I speak to him.
And I speak to him in a dream. We get prerequisites for prophets, for Nebar. He speaks to these men or these particular individuals, because we know that Miriam was also a prophetess. Through what? What's the primary means of contact or connectivity between Yah and his prophets?
Well, it's, for the most part, a subconscious action that you can't control.
It's
So,
yeah,
a vision,
a vision.
whether like Yashiyahu,
Yes.
it be sort of a trance or an out-of-body experience,
Mm-hmm.
or a dream in the night. And we have instances of that with Avram
Mm-hmm.
in his initial meetings with Yah, with Yitzhak, Yaakov, Daniel.
I mean, it's pretty consistent. Yeah. So we have a pretty well set standard of how Yah actually congregates or kollels or has or intercesses with his Nebar.
Yeah.
It's a standard. Okay. So for people who have deemed themselves prophets,
You can't.
this
Well,
kind of
I once
doesn't let
saw
that happen.
something on social media,
Mhm.
and this guy said a prophetic flow at 8 p.m. tonight.
Okay.
And that is not prophecy.
Well, you can't make an appointment for the Ruach HaKodesh.
Exactly. In fact, let's stop using the word prophet for a moment,
Okay.
and we'll use a better transliteration of the term spokesperson.
Spokesperson. I like that.
Because essentially all a Navi,
Mm-hmm.
whenever is a spokesperson from Yah or Elohim.
Virtually.
All they do is pass the message on. They don't do it of themselves.
No.
They are simply proxies.
The vessel of the Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, let's look more into this. And it gives us an anecdotal example, like with Moshe. But what he says about Moshe is something a little different. Moshe is an exception to the rule. He says, "Not so with my servant Moshe. He is trustworthy in all my house." How did he speak to Moshe?
Face to face or mouth to mouth.
Okay, and not
Not in
in
riddles. Spoke.
and he sees the form of Yah. is Moshe a prophet?
He is,
Mm.
by the sense of the word.
But did the Yah speak to Moshe in the same fashion as he did with the rest of the Nevi'im?
He is not.
No, it's different.
Now the exception doesn't make the rule, but there's an exception here.
Yeah.
Okay? There's an exception here. Now, we don't need to really unveil it and pull it back. I mean, we can try. If either of you have a revelation, if anybody else who's watching, may be watching, has a revelation or something to add to this, that may give us some elucidation when it comes to enlightenment, when it comes to what this exception was based on, please put it in the chat if you're there. And if we see it later, we'll address it. It's something different. You spake with him mouth to mouth. Now, there could arise other prophets, right? Aknadab, I want you to go to Hevarim 13, verse 1. I think it should be Hevarim. You were about to say? You about to say something?
Oh, I was just about to make a comment on the circumstances,
Okay.
because this is when they're initially given the instruction, given the declaration and instruction. So at this point, I don't think you don't want riddles at this point. You want clear, concise statements. You want Torah, you want instruction.
They could have a lot to do with the state of Israel and what state they were in, not just mentally and spiritually, but also physically. They were in the desert. They were all one people. They had yet to enter into the land. So a lot of the prophecies that have been made about their people and about their lineage had yet to occur, had yet to be initiated, because they had yet to possess the land. A lot of the things like the counts of the Shemitahs, the counts of the Yovelim, they didn't start until they entered the land. You understand?
Yeah.
So that may have something to do with it, and I'm just piggybacking and building on what you mentioned. But that may have something to do with it. I think that really has something to do with it. But also, Moshe was a hand by which Yah worked. Not all prophets necessarily worked miracles.
Moshe
worked miracles. So
Moshe at this point, Moshe was
a conduit.
Yah's
Yeah, he was his conduit. He was the hand through which Yah was operating to a certain extent. Because we do know that Yahushua was there. We do believe that Yahushua was there in the form of a messenger to help him lead the children out, to protect them and to guide them and whatnot.
Yeah,
but Moshe
spoke
for Yah.
He spoke for the people.
And Yaharon spoke for Moshe.
Not only that, but the people requested that Moshe speak for them. He was their representative to Yah because they were afraid to get close to Yah.
In a perfect world, had the children of Israel had not done any of the things that they had done, to find themselves in the desert, there would have been little need for Yahushua to come and die. Instead, he could have come and reign. You know what I mean? But obviously, they had to go through this. This is a part of the refinement. This is a part of
this is a part of
the making of a people.
This is also a part of the
redemptive process. Yes, and I was going to touch on that. The part of the redemptive process. Now, here at Lucayan Natsarim Fellowship, we understand the redemptive process to be sixfold. First being obedience, which means to stop doing whatever you're doing that is contrary to Torah or contrary to Yah's will, and to obey. Yah will then deliver you from whatever it is that you're steeped in or held bondage by. After which he reveals himself to you, revelation, and lets you know who it is that you have to thank and who you give your worship to. After he reveals himself to you, he usually appoints you He gives you an appointment. He gives you a designation. He gives you a new name. He gives you a responsibility. He tries your mettle. He tests your mettle. He tries you. And if you meet that appointment, once you meet that appointment, the last is he's going to give you a promise as a part of that appointment. He promises you something that if you meet and achieve and exceed his expectations for you in this appointment, that he has a promise attached to it. And finally, the sixth and final part of the redemptive process is, of course, the fulfillment of said promise, which we're all looking forward to, which is everlasting life, whatever that may be, in whatever form it takes.
You could sort of look at it as an employment contract.
That's exactly it.
We have a position. You realize he's there, and you obey. You see who he is. He reveals himself. Well, he delivers you.
Mm-hmm.
You get to the place. You get to the building for the interview. He reveals himself. The manager comes down and talks to you.
Mm-hmm.
He appoints you. He gives you the position that's available. He tells you that. He makes you a promise. This is your contract. Forward by this way.
And this is what will be fulfilled.
And then he pays you at the end of it.
Hallelujah.
Your reward.
Hallelujah.
Permanent contract.
Let's go to Hevarim 13:1.
All right. If
And-
there,
Oh, sorry about that. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. We didn't get to the end point that I was getting to there. So when we see that these Nevad or the Nevaim, the prophets, Yah says he makes himself known to him in a vision, and I speak to him in a dream. He reveals himself in a vision. So before you can become or be appointed as a Nevad or a prophet, you must have first gone through at least 4 steps in the redemptive process. 3 to 4 steps, which is obedience being the first and most important. Deliverance, meaning that you were taken out of the thing that made you crawl in the first place, or whatever situation, circumstance you may have found yourself in, whether or not be by your own hand or your own devices. And then he reveals himself in a dream and speaks to you in a vision. Reveals himself in a vision and speaks to you in a dream. Yeah? Then, once he's revealed himself in a vision, revelation, and spoken to you in a dream, now, guess what you've been appointed as? A prophet, a Nevad.
I don't know if people know this, but a lot of the prophets, the Navi, were actually contemporaries.
Mm-hmm.
And the most prominent, should I say prominent? Yeshayahu, Jeremiah.
They were prominent. They would be erroneously referred to in Christian theology as major prophets.
Well, there's no major,
or minor and greater and lesser prophets.
but I would say this with the exception of Yeshayahu, because Yeshayahu specifically points us toward Yosha.
Mm-hmm.
So, but otherwise, a lot of the Navi were contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
They actually
One
lived
take
in
over
a
the other.
community together.
Yeah. Which means that it wasn't something that was a title that was exclusive to one individual at a time. And we see allusion to that in Chazon, in Revelation, because when we had the 2 witnesses who are prophets,
Come in the spirit of Eliyahu
and Moshe. So that's a big thing. Now, pardon me, I won't interrupt you this time. Let's go. Aknadab, Devarim, or Deuteronomy 13, verse 1.
1 to
And
5?
just keep going until, I give you that.
Alright. If there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder come to pass, whereof he spoke unto you, saying, Let us go after other Elohim, which you have not known, and let us serve them. You shall not hearken unto the words of that prophet, or that dreamer of dreams, for Yahweh Elohechem proves you to know whether you love Yahweh Elohechem with all your heart and with all your soul. You shall walk after Yahweh Elohechem and fear him, and guard his commandments, and obey his voice, and you shall serve him and cleave unto him.
Hold on. So, were dreamers and prophets commonplace? Would you say?
Yeah.
Were they at least common enough for there to be some sort of I don't know, reference point of reference, individual point of reference for each and every individual, for them to understand this individual Torah.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Every part of the law should be able to be understandable, even if the things that don't apply to you. So even though it doesn't apply, Nida doesn't apply to you, you understand Nida, menstrual separation. You understand it.
Mm.
Doesn't apply to me, but I understand it. So if my significant other or my wife, which should be my significant other, is now in the state of Nida, I can assist her in keeping true to her vow. So yeah, because I understand it. So that's such as the same with all the Torah and the mitzvos. They have to be understandable. Clearly, this is understandable. When prophet rise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams. This stuff happened. They were prophets. They were dreamers. But there's another prerequisite. What is it? Now the sign or wonder, and then the sign or the wonder come true. Did they dream inaccurately? Did they prophesize inaccurately? Does he describe a prophet who describes something inaccurately?
Well, it says, And the sign of the wonder come to pass, whereof he spoke unto you, saying, Let us go after other Elohim, which you have not known, and let us serve.
So,
You shall not
did the sign or wonder come to pass? Did the sign or the wonder that was prophesied come to pass?
Yeah. And the sign.
So was the prophecy or the foretelling true or false?
True.
It was true.
True.
It was true. It was true and accurate.
Yeah.
But what's the point behind this?
Let us go out. Well, that false prophet was seeking to lead astray other people.
They misinterpret who it was from. It's likened unto the first sin that Israel did as a nation, where they built a golden calf and called it Yahweh.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the height of abomination. But in their minds, they were giving him an honor. This is what the Mitzrayites did with their deities, to honor their deities. The highest deity, their deity of deities, Baal. So shall we honor our deity of deities, Yah, by making him a golden calf in honor of him.
They did that to honor themselves.
Exactly. And do all the things that the Mitzrayites did to honor their Elohim. But I want you to look up at the same Hevarim, right in 12, right?
Yeah.
And I want you to look when it says 29 and 30. Read those for me.
When Yahweh Elohechem shall cut off the nations from before you, whither you go to possess them, and you succeed them and dwell in their land, take heed to yourself that you be not snared by following them, after that they be destroyed from before you, and that you inquire not after their Elohim, saying, How did these nations serve their Elohim? Even so will I do likewise.
All right. So don't do what they did from the other nations. What did they do as they left Mitzrayim? Same thing Mitzrayim did. Did they do it to be abominations, to be a stench before Yah, to disrespect Yah, to be resentful to show their detest. No. In their hearts, they were doing the right thing. How dark their hearts must have been. This is where before we get even into the beginning of the Hevarim, this structural discussion of what a Nevar or a prophet is so essential for our understanding going forward.
And I guess it's used so frivolously these days.
Yes.
That we don't really get the understanding and get the sense of importance of who they are.
Yeah.
They are a line to Yah.
Yes. They're the red phone line. They're the red telephone. Okay? They're the direct call line to Yah. They are how Yah communicates with his people, individually and collectively. Because Nevar or Nevarim or prophets spake to kings individually. Oh, they spake to crowds. They spake to cities. Yonah is one prophet that turned an entire city, 45,000 people. Not much different than Grand Bahama, the island that we're in.
Went to a city,
Nineveh, and one of the worst places to go. Nineveh used to be part of Babylon proper. And he converted the entire city.
The entire city. Don sackcloth, poured ash on the head,
And mourned.
and fasted.
Fasted and mourned for their iniquity. Nineveh. Saying something. It's saying something. So what do you do with someone who comes with a true prophecy, but they endeavor, even if only implicitly or complicitly, not explicitly, try to lead you to a different mighty one, other than the one who properly gave them the proper interpretation?
We can find that in Hevarim 13, verses 3 to 5.
3 to 5. And what does it say? What do you do with that guy? Chapter and verse 5.
It says, and that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death,
Shall be put to death.
because he has spoken to turn you away from Yahweh Elohim, which brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, and redeemed you out of the house of bondage, to thrust you out of the way which Yahweh Elohim commanded you to walk in. So shall you put the evil away from the midst of you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Made very clear, right? Death. Now, do we have jurisdiction to bring death upon people? To stone them, to drag them out in the street and stone them? No, we don't have jurisdiction to do that. But what are they inviting into their lives when they do this? Death. For the wages of sin is. The means of that death is entirely up to Yah. Well, up to them and how far they're willing to carry their apostasy. And all it is something very simple. Very simple. Oh, Jupiter gave me this prophecy for you. Woden gave me this prophecy for you. The tarot cards gave me this prophecy. Your star sign gave me this prophecy for you. The Germanic Celtic, Germano-Celtic deity God gave me this prophecy for you. And it comes true. What happens to that person that they gave this, they led astray, gave the prophecy to and had it come? Who are they going to go to for their next?
They're going to go to that person.
Or they're going to go to wherever that person directed them, the source of which this person is supposedly divining this truth. Can Yah use an unclean vessel to pass a necessary and Kadesh message?
Well, yeah.
You have precedent for it?
When you say unclean, that see.
Let's look. We have precedent for it. You can keep going. Who is it?
At a point, Moshe.
At a point, Moshe. Yes.
Moshe was, he was a accused murderer at a point in his life.
True. and his lips were literally afflicted. His tongue was literally afflicted, and he was stumbled of speech. But there's one more place I want to think about. Numbers, or Bemidbar 22. Y'all go to it for me. Bilam and the donkey.
We can also find instances in Shoftim.
Yeah. And I think in Yeshayahu, where the donkey even spake and said that Babel is fallen. I'm not quite sure, but this donkey spake here, Bilam, said, the donkey saw the messenger of Yahweh. She lay down in verse 27, lay down under Bilam. So Bilam's displeasure burned. He struck the donkey with the staff. Then Yahweh opened the mouth of the donkey. She said to Balaam, what have I done to you that you have stricken me these 3 times? Is a donkey unclean?
Yeah, you can.
You can't eat a donkey. So technically it's an unclean animal.
Yeah.
It's not for food, it's not kashrut.
Yes.
So Yah used the mouth of the donkey to correct Balaam. Was Balaam clean?
No.
That's another question. Right? We have another instance with Kippah. Rise and eat. Nothing I have made is unclean. How about the story of the kind Shomroni, the Good Samaritan?
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah.
Someone looked on as
A castaway, a pariah. Yeah.
taboo. But he was the one who assisted the man on the way. There in Shoftim, like I mentioned before, Judges. Yeah, I use many, how do I put it? People who were flawed to deliver Israel in their time of need. He used Shimshon. He used, I can't remember his name. There's one of them who, when he went out to battle, he said, I'll sacrifice the first thing that
Oh,
comes to me.
and when his daughter came out, he didn't kill her though, just so you know. But she became an eternal, a perpetual virgin. She actually started a line of women who would go into that service under the same sort of portents. I just wanted to make that important distinction that Israel did not ever practice human sacrifice under the behest of Yahweh.
God doesn't ask us for that.
No.
But this man offered it up.
Yeah.
It was,
Without even thinking. Because why should he think?
And I forget this one.
But what is he? Doesn't Yah say don't make vows?
Yeah.
We usually make these big sweeping declarations, and I mean, almost like a punctuation on that declaration comes the thing that we just declared against. You know what I mean?
And let's not forget one of the most prolific of the Talmudim, Shaul. Shaul was killing his people, and he stopped them in the road.
Infamous, more than prolific, but I know what you're saying.
In terms of his writings now, because we all reference Shaul's writings, but he was stopped, and Yahusha decided to reveal himself.
And used Rav Shaul as the conduit for his message to the nations of all people. Think about that. To the nations of all people. And he was zealous for slaying circumcised and uncircumcised alike, but he was zealous for the Torah. And that zeal that had him killing people is the same zeal he took out into the nations to share the love and the enrichment of the Torah with them. People who otherwise would not have known anything about Yah or had long forgotten.
Can we reference where it says, where Yah says, I have mercy on whom I wish to have mercy on?
Look
I
it
show
up.
favor to whom I show.
Go look it up. Bring it up. Let us know when you get it. All right. So Yah uses unclean vessels to bring a clean or set apart message. So, they say even a garbage gets state. A broken clock is right twice a day. Some of these people may have the gift of prophecy, may have the gift of dreaming. Yah may be working something in their lives in order to make them at least available as a conduit for his message. Oh, this is the big. But that doesn't mean that it allows them to endorse another Elohim. They cannot endorse another Elohim as the harbinger of the message that they bring. They can't. It's impossible. Because even if they do so, that mighty one is not behind it. They get the credit, they get the worship, but that doesn't take away from Yah's power. That doesn't take away from the validity of the thing itself. That's why it's apostasy.
There's only one source of knowledge, one source of wisdom.
Okay. Imagine a guy, imagine we're back in the 60s, right? In Grand Bahama in the 60s, and you come with a brand new Cadillac, right? No one's ever seen a Cadillac before. No one knows what it is. And you tell them that you made the car. Yeah? And I'm my last name is Cadillac. I may work for a while, but there's gonna come a reckoning.
Someone's gonna ask what that GM.
Okay. There's gonna come a reckoning. Someone else is gonna get a Cadillac. Something's gonna happen that's gonna cause you to have to reconcile what came to pass, which you can know is actual, and what doesn't seem to connect with it. So with the famous thing I like to do with astrology, with the astrology buffs and people who call themselves astrologers, I take them outside at night, point to your star, point to the constellation that governs your behavior, your personality, your being. Point to it, show me where it is. They can't show me. Why can't they show me? Doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Does the constellation exist? Yeah, it's right there. Can they find it? No. So if you can't find it, how can they communicate with it? Does Yah communicate with us? Can we find Yah?
Yeah. He's everywhere.
He's everywhere. He's also in his words.
Yeah.
That he spake through his Hevarim. Through his servants, through his ministers, through his Melakim, his messengers. We have that available to us. We have a bibliography of it, a record of it here. The tales of our ancestors. The lived experience of countless men and women. As test, measure, and reproduction. Over and over and over, scientific method over and over and over and over. If anyone knows anything about epigenetics, then you have to understand the import of what is happening here. Behavioral cultivation of a specific peoples. This is serious. And every word in here is definitely what it is. Okay? All right. So we're going to get started with Yehoshua. I know it sounds like we were into this already, but we're going to start with chapter 1 of Yehoshua, or Joshua, if you'd like to follow along. That's a nice little preamble. We get an understanding of the prophets, Nebar. Maybe we won't get to Yehoshua today, and see now that we're going into 40 minutes. I want to kind of keep these digestible. I know the time just went by. Man. The time just went by like a hiccup. We're going to try and condense these. We're going to get it more formatted. And by the time we get back to you at the beginning of Yahusha, we'll have it in such an orderly manner and with study points for you to follow along with. But we thank you for our 1 to 2. I think we had 3 viewers at one point that came and at least took a little bit of the message along with them. And we just really hope that we can continue to do this and expound and get a little bit more reach and a little bit more traction of the message so that we can fulfill the commission given to us in Madashiahu, which says, want to find that for me, anybody? Madashiahu 24. Was it 24 or is it 26? I think it's 26. '28, pardon me. That our Moshiach, Yahusha, gave us. And that'll be in Madashiahu 28, verse 19. And I'll say it myself. Yahusha is speaking. Therefore, go and make taught ones of all the nations, immersing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the set apart Spirit, teaching them to guard all that I have commanded you. And see, I am with you always until the end of the age. Amen. Come together and say our preamble, which is the Constitution for Natsarim Israel. And it's Hevarim, or Deuteronomy 6, verse 4. I'll say it first in the Hebrew, and then we'll say it all together in the tongue of exile, English. Hallelujah, Yah, when you're there. Hevarim 6, verse 4. Hevarim, or Deuteronomy 6, verse 4. In Hebrew. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Baruch Shem Kabod, Makutu, Le'alam Bayeh. You have to at Yahweh Lehekum Kul, Vavkov Kul, Neshekov Kul, Neodecha. Bahayu HaDavarim Ha'aleh Ashir Anoki, Metzavka Yom Halavavka. Veshin Antam Lavaneka. Vertibata Bam, Besheftika, Vertika, Uflataka Barek, Shumeka, Ufkumeka. Ukshetam Leyotereteka, Ototufut Baina Neka, Uktav Tamu, Muzazut, Vertika, Uvish Adeka. And in the tongue of exile, English, we say, Hear, O Israel, Yahweh is one, and we shall love Yahweh our Elohim with all our hearts, with all our being, and with all our might. And these words which you commanded us today shall be in our hearts, and we shall impress them upon our children, and shall speak of them when we sit in our house, and when we walk by the way, and when we lie down, and when we rise up. We shall bind them as a sign on our hands, and they shall be as frontlets between our eyes. We shall bind them to our doorposts of our house and on our gates. Hallelujah. We hope you join us again. Hopefully we can all be saying this in unison, wherever we are, all over the world. Shalom Aleikhem, Hevarim. Yah be with you.
Shalom, shalom.